All right, what's up, my brothers from another mother? We got a sponsored request video today. This topic comes from a guy in Germany. Before I hop into it, I just want to quickly mention the channel sponsor, the Tactical Soap Company, pheromone infused soap. You're showering anyways, you might as well use the stuff that supports the creation of the content on this channel. If you use coupon code Cooper at checkout, you'll get 10% off. There's a link pinned in the description below. Let's hop straight into it. Lucas from Germany says he is 47 years old, never got married, doesn't have any children, but he's had some experiences with women and he has some questions. He has a lot of questions, in fact. I realize that English isn't your first language. You've mentioned you're not a native speaker of American English. So what I've done is just to try to make this a little bit easier to slice and dice and hop into. I just copied and pasted over to a Word doc and bolded out some stuff just to make the grammar a little more poppy on the screen, if you will. So he goes on to say that, well, what he's doing before I hop into this is you obviously haven't had a very good experience with women. You're 47 years old, and I understand that you're frustrated and have some questions, which you're looking for some answers to. I unfortunately don't have a magic wand in my arsenal of tools that I can wave and help everybody understand things, but what I'll certainly do is I'll go through your requests and I'll try to make as much sense of it as possible. All right, let's begin. I've bolded some of the main stuff here. So he's saying things like women's behavior. Is it learned behavior or is it actually women's true nature? It's a bit of both, if we're being honest. I mean, we're all going to operate based on our default programming, our DNA, what it says, what it tells us to do. You've got to understand that we live in a modern environment today that is not like how we've lived throughout most of history. We're human beings that essentially evolved from endurance predator work on the savannah in Africa. We used to run down animals until they would fucking die of exhaustion, basically, and eat them. We were hunter-gatherers, and we did that for a long time. We obviously moved and migrated throughout much of the world and expanded our reach, made boats, went across the sea, across the pond to North America, and, you know, the rest is history. But all that's really only happened in the last, few hundred years. The biggest developments that we've seen have really only been in the last 50 odd years or so when it comes to communication and technology and how we navigate the world today, which is difficult simply because we're not really designed to operate in the world that we live in today. We're not really specifically designed to drive cars on roads and have electricities and computers and things like this and live in this landscape and have social media. Social media has a huge influence, of course, on the way that, you know, we interact on the sexual marketplace between men and women. So I just kind of want to frame the conversation by starting there. So most of it, I'm going to say, is true nature, and we obviously learn as we grow how to adapt, or at least we hope that we do. I know that for myself and a lot of the stuff that I talk about on the channel, become a better version of yourself, really, is what I'm chatting about. Is you take ownership for your life and learn and adapt, because if you don't adapt and learn, you're gonna be extinct. You're gonna die out, and you're not gonna pass on your genes. You're just going to move through the sands of time, through the hourglass, if you will. It's guys that learn about the sexual marketplace that have a lot more happiness and fulfillment. And I think the same thing's true for women, although I'm not necessarily talking to women when I make these videos. I'm responding mostly to men. So let's go further down. He's asking other questions like, were women told or taught for them to establish women's rights? They would have had to infringe on men's rights, or is it in female nature? You're talking mostly here about feminism, I think, and for one sexist strategy to advance, it's usually going to come at some cost to the others. Where we live right now, where you're saying that women's rights, or would they have to infringe on men's rights, or is it female nature? It's female nature to survive, and women survive differently from the way that men do. Historically speaking, anyway, the biggest, strongest tribal men would obviously, do the best. They'd have higher mating rights to the women, so to speak, in the local community / tribe, and that's just the way that it was. And for women to be successful, they would need to pair bond or mate up with the highest provisioning, most successful males within that group. And it was like that for a long, long time. So today we don't need that anymore. Women don't need men. We famously hear women say all the time, I don't need a man, so on and so forth. And that's how we end up in this environment where it's reasonably hostile towards men. And I know there's going to be people that aren't going to argue it. And, you've had your reign of terror, man. Step aside, let women, it's our turn now, sort of thing. Ladies, it's been your turn for a long time, and I'll explain a little bit more why throughout this video. Another good video that you might want to watch to kind of help frame this a little bit is one that I did a long time ago on female shaming tactics, and I'll put a card up on the top right of the screen. You should check that one out. So to answer your question more broadly, is ingrained in the DNA genetic? For the most part, yeah. I mean, most of our behavior is certainly, a result of our historical genetic past, if you will. But there's a lot of learned behavior that we have to adapt and apply to today's world. Were women told that for them to live in a paradise, it would be okay to give men hell, and this would be a sustainable way of living, or do they come up with this behavior all on their own, each woman individually? I can tell here that you're bitter. I mean, there's probably going to be women at some point that are going to chime in the comments going, "Who hurt you? Who hurt you, Lucas? Who was it that did this to you?" And that's just a common response. I've got that before. It's a standard shaming tactic. Yes, it can be difficult with women if you don't understand how to interact with them on the sexual marketplace. If you pair bond with the wrong woman, it can be very, very difficult. She can make your life hell, as you describe, and it sounds like you've probably experienced. If you don't have solid frame, if you don't maintain the frame of the relationship, if you don't understand sexual dynamics, if you're kind of sleepwalking through life with a blue pill lens, yes, it can end up being hell. It's usually that hell that brings men to the red pill, that helps them understand what happened and they try to fix it. Some guys don't. Right now, you're in a bit of a rage period. So in full disclosure, those of you that are watching this right now, this is what red pill rage looks like. He is upset. He's pointing and sputtering at women, female nature. Is it okay for them to give men hell? No, I mean, you're going to get out of life what you tolerate. If you're going to allow a woman to treat you like shit, she's going to understand that is the baseline operating protocol for your relationship, and will continue to treat you like shit. She will continue to give you hell if you allow it to continue. You have to maintain the frame of the relationship. I say this over and over again, guys. It is very, very hard to be successful in a long-term relationship in today's modern world with women if you don't manage the frame properly. As soon as you start, letting them treat you like this and give you hell, it's going to go downhill very quick. She's going to lose respect for you, and it's probably not going to last very long. So, kind of dealing with this. So let's move on. You're talking about, have women been told never to call him, or he has to earn your respect, or take your upper hand. You have to control the man. You're pretty pissed off by this point. I get it. You have to train the man to be like a dog. Nice guys are weak. You mentioned nice guys a few times in your email. So I'd recommend anybody that uses that word nice guy. Let me just go to a bigger screen so I can show you this on the screen properly. I'm probably going to get Dr. Glover on at some point. No More Mr. Nice Guy is a great book, a proven plan for getting what you want in love, sex, and life. He's not a nice guy, but he's a kind man, is kind of the way that Sean T. Smith put it, another clinical psychologist. Both great men. Really enjoyed both their company at the 21 convention. This is a good book. If you're using terms like nice guy, or you feel like you've been a nice guy and you've been betrayed and you haven't been receiving what you thought that you should be receiving as a result of your effort and work, that's probably a pretty good place to start. Again, if you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you smash that subscription button and the notification bell, because I will be getting Dr. Glover on at some point. He's a very cool dude. Okay. All problems that women face in today's world, it's men's fault. Okay, let's talk about that for a minute. Women don't take ownership the same way that men do. And not a lot of men take ownership for themselves today either. I think it's generally speaking, men that have their endocrine system dominated by testosterone are probably more likely to take ownership for the results they get out of life. Whereas if your endocrine system's not operating properly, we have a lot of guys that have really bad levels, like blood markers today, walking around. You can see them, they've got weak, soft voices. They have terrible patchy beards that can't grow in. They're basically part of the low T nation. And a lot of that is a function of them sleepwalking through life and making some bad choices. And some of it is actually also genetic too. It also depends on where you live. I mean, we could do an entire show on how the modern world is bombarding men's endocrine system in such a way that it's difficult. But the point being that you're asking here is all problems that women face in today's world, it's men's fault. Women don't take ownership the way that men do. It is much easier for a woman to point and sputter any of her disgruntled feelings towards her man, the world. They're not as likely to take ownership in the way that men will. So I'll leave it at that. That should clarify that point and make sense. Guys, it's pretty much always going to be your fault. You're almost always going to get the blame for everything when it comes to the sexual marketplace on a long-term basis. That's just the way that it is. It's going to continue to be that way, and it's not going to change that much. You as a man have the burden of performance. That is your job. That is who you are. I mean, we live in a world where you have 100% responsibility as a man, but 0% authority. So it makes this even more difficult because you have the responsibility, but no authority with that responsibility, which makes it nearly impossible and very difficult. And I understand why guys get so pissed off and write messages like this, but hopefully diving down through this might offer a little bit of insight and clarity for you. Here's another one. Have they been told that it's okay to be vindictive, vampiristic? I'm guessing that means like an energy vampire. Cold-hearted, emotionally disingenuous, and deceitful. No, I don't think they've been told that. I think that women's solipsism probably is the catalyst that is leading to those sorts of results that you're getting. I've had experiences where a woman has been warm and loving and kind, and then she goes to frigid, sometimes within the same day. If it's within the same day or within hours, it's a good chance she might be borderline or have some other kind of personality disorder. But women can be sugar and spice and all things nice, and they can of course also be vindictive, vampiristic, cold-hearted, emotionally disingenuous, and deceitful. Women are capable of pretty much all of these behaviors given the right circumstances. Again, it's why you need to be red pill aware and manage the frame of the relationship, because if you're not understanding female nature to a strong, deep degree, you're going to come up with descriptive terms for women like this. My advice to you is to probably stay away from the dating market until you're able to reconcile why you're thinking things like this, because this is not going to lead to anything productive for you. Did somebody tell them in order to arrive at a close relationship, they have to be distant, especially in the beginning of a relationship? If a woman's distant with you in the starting point, like the honeymoon phase when you're dating, quick coffee time sip, it's because they don't like you that much. A lot of guys try to force themselves into close proximity to women or a relationship with women, and they find that they're distant and they have to do so much work and that the juice is not worth the squeeze. A woman that wants to be with you, that digs your vibe, that wants to spend time with you, will put herself in an environment where it's easy for that to happen. It won't be difficult. So if you're finding yourself in scenarios where it is difficult and they are distant, frigid, or cold early on, it's a bad sign. It's usually a pretty good indication to me anyway that the interest level is quite low from her. I'll put up another card on the top right of the screen about interest levels and how to manage that. So check out that video as well. Did somebody tell them it was necessary and okay if they want to have a relationship is built on mutual trust, and then they would have to manipulate the man? Again, women's solipsism is going to dictate that they are going to try to take care of their own agenda first. Yours comes secondary. You ask any married guy that's been married for a few years that has a few children, and the vast majority of them will tell you that they're not a priority in the relationship. It's her, it's the kids, it's the dog, and then maybe you come last. And it's one of the reasons why I always tell guys to be very careful when dating single moms, because now you're dealing with genetic stock that's not even yours. So if they're treating their husbands, married men, like they're not at the top of the priority list, that it gets even worse with the single mommy. So yeah, that's to answer that one there. Did somebody tell them it was okay to ridicule men as losers, wimps, and so on? Yeah, actually, that's probably a learned function for the most part, because of TV medium, media, basically the female primary social order. I mean, if you turn on the television and you have cable and you watch any sitcom, the father or the man is a loser, a wimp, a bumbling idiot. He can't do anything right, can't fix anything in the house. She's got to fix up his problems, clean up the mess, call her dad to fix it. That's just the way men have been portrayed. If you look at advertisements, it's pretty much the same thing. Men are portrayed as a bumbling idiot that makes a mess around the house, can't fix anything, is utterly useless, and she is a superhero that does it all. So again, there's a card up on the top right already from earlier about shaming tactics. Oh, sorry, no, that's under why men are so feminized today. So I'll include a card for that video as well. So that's a different video. Card on the top right of the screen there. Yeah, okay. You're talking about Rockefeller and money here. Okay, you're talking more of the same stuff. Here's another one. Does somebody tell women of today that it's okay to always be nagging, never satisfied, always demanding, and have nothing but conditional love for men? Now, okay, here in itself is blue-pilled thinking. It's blue-pilled conditioning. If a woman's nagging you, it's because she's unsatisfied with who you are, most likely because you're not her first choice. A woman does not nag a man that she admires, respects, trusts, wants to be with sexually and intimately. It's very rare that she's going to nag. I'll tell you right now, a very good sign that your woman's probably cheating on you or about to leave you is if she's nagging you and insulting and degrading you at the peak of her ovulatory cycle. If she's doing that and going out with her girlfriends, by the way, for a girls' night out, you're in a pretty bad position. And that's just female nature. You just have to understand, women just are. One of the things that I should mention in this video again, and I've talked about it on my channel, is, there's no good women, there's no bad women, there's just women. Like, all women have the capacity to treat you like this, given the right scenario and circumstances. Some women will not allow themselves to go down that road just simply because they don't want to waste their time and they've got other more important things to do. But again, given the right circumstances and scenario, this can happen to just about any dude. Have women been told that in order to dwell in personal freedom, it was okay, necessary, and sustainable to enslave their men? You let this happen, dude. If you put yourself in an environment where you feel like you're her plow horse, and I've talked about from pet to plow horse before on my channel, just to quickly go over it again. The pet is when she brings you over for Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner to introduce you to her family, and she's like, "Hey, this is Pete." And what she's really saying is, "Hey, family, look what I caught." Okay? And it starts with the pet. And then what that progresses to throughout the course of the relationship and even marriage, or if they're living together, is the plow horse. And you're talking about enslavement here, which is what the plow horse enslavement essentially is you become an accessory to her life. You're driving around and picking up and dropping off shit that she wants you to buy for the house or return because it doesn't fit the decor. You're going to events and parties and places that you don't necessarily agree with or wouldn't do because the people or the attendees that are in place, and you feel like a slave to her. You've been turned into a plow horse. Excuse me. A really good example of that is go to a mall or even a grocery store and find, and I mean, like, you'll see this. Just look for it. You'll find the guy with the short, plump wife with 3 kids, all screaming, behaving very badly, under the age of 7, for example. And she's browbeating his ass, telling him that he put the wrong diapers in the buggy and he's an utter and complete moron, and why can't he do anything right? You'll see it. Keep an eye open for it. Men allow this to happen to themselves. You need to maintain the frame of the relationship. You need to be strong and dominant if you're going to go down the long path of an LTR or a marriage. Most guys aren't. And that's how you end up in scenarios where they feel enslaved. You let it happen to yourself, guys. If you let it happen, pretty much any woman will bring you to that point at some way down the road. And I know a lot of guys, especially MGTOWs, will be like, "See, go MGTOW. See, the juice is not worth the squeeze, man." Even what do they like to say too? Even Brad Pitt couldn't maintain frame. Look what happened to him. He's screwed now. He doesn't even get to see his kids, and Angelina Jolie's doing this, that, and the other thing. Yeah, okay. So probably Brad has a few things to learn about enslavement of men and vetting women on a long-term basis. I don't like to point and sputter and give all the blame to one sex or the other, but I will say this, guys. there's a lot that you have within your control that would let you function better on a long-term basis with women. Right, and he's got more and more of this stuff throughout this. I've already gone for quite a bit in the video, so I kind of want to wrap it up towards the end. He says, my question therefore is, are women being told today that the negative behavior they show towards men nowadays is perfectly okay and necessary? Yes, it is perfectly okay. It is the norm. The way that things go down today is the norm. It is perfectly normal. It is standard operating procedure. It doesn't mean that you have to accept it. It doesn't mean that you have to put yourself in a position where you're somebody's bitch or punching bag or plow horse. Guys let that happen to themselves because they sleepwalk into a long-term relationship or marriage without vetting the woman properly, one, and two, maintaining proper frame. Guys are constantly getting into long-term relationships and marriages with women with borderline personality disorder that have undesirable traits that will make your life a living nightmare. That part's on you, fellas. You can't expect all women just to show up and be sugar and spice and all things nice because that's what you were told when you were a kid. You've got to open your eyes. Anyway, he goes on to say, necessarily because men are unreliable, distant, cold-hearted, irresponsible, egotistic, merciless wrongdoers by nature, and therefore it is perfectly imperative to treat them alike. Or do you think women's nature is generally that way? What's your opinion? Well, I think I've expressed my opinion on this video. I feel like you've got a shit ton of red pill rage, which is okay. It's part of the unplugging process. It's what leads a lot of guys to the red pill and forces them to wake up so they don't have to live life in a paradigm like this. There's a better way through it. I mean, you can watch the content on my channel. There's some good playlists here. Watch the Red Man group on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. There's a great group of panelists that address a lot of the base work and framework, if you will, that's probably leading you to the undesirable results that you're getting. But I hope that helps. The request will be public. So guys, if you're watching this and you have some feedback that you think would be useful for this particular viewer, leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. If you guys are enjoying these, awesome. Let's continue doing them. I also want to mention that if you want to make a request for a sponsored video, it's just entrepreneursandcars.com/request. I'll put a card up on the top right. So you can go ahead and do that. And you just fill out the form over here. You make your PayPal donation for the sponsoring of the video, and I'll record it and put it publicly up on the channel. So that is it. Thank you, my brothers from another mother, for watching today's video. See you guys in the next one. Peace.